Alex stood quietly at the edge of the starship's kitchen bay, his hands folded loosely in front of him. He didn't speak much, and that was fine by him. Words had never been his strength, but actions always spoke louder. The hum of the engines vibrated through the metal floor beneath his boots, a constant reminder that the ship was alive and moving, carrying its strange crew through the endless black of space. The crew themselves were a sight to behold. 4 species, each stranger than the last, moved around the kitchen bay in a flurry of motion. 1. A tall, blue-skinned alien with 6 arms juggled pots and pans with alarming speed, muttering in clicks and whistles. Another, a green, slug-like creature with luminous eyes, scooped ingredients into a container that floated above its head through some kind of anti-gravity field. A small, insectoid alien zipped back and forth, its wings creating a faint buzzing, delivering messages between stations. Alex's species, human, was clearly the simplest one here. "Hey, quiet one," a voice called. Alex turned to see the captain, a stern-looking alien with a smooth, silver carapace, watching him from across the room. "You're the cook, right? Don't worry, just do your job," Alex nodded. That was his usual response. A simple nod, polite but silent. Words weren't necessary. He had a feeling that on this ship, he would need to prove himself not by speech, but by skill. He moved to the prep station and began studying the ingredients. The alien food materials were strange, some glowing, some emitting soft vibrations, others floating slightly above the surface of the counter. Alex examined them carefully, noting the textures, smells, and how they reacted to heat. Even if he didn't know the proper names, he could feel the potential of each ingredient. "Humans," the blue-skinned chef muttered, noticing Alex watching him. "They think they can cook. Ha, we've been at this for centuries. You'll fail before you even touch a pan." Alex didn't respond. He simply moved to an empty cooking station, arranging the ingredients in front of him. He preferred letting his actions speak. The first test came sooner than expected. A sudden announcement blared through the ship. The storage bay's supply systems had malfunctioned. Some essential ingredients were spoiled or missing. Panic spread quickly. The green, slug-like alien squealed in alarm, while the insectoid zipped around screaming unintelligible warnings. The blue-skinned chef slammed a pan to the floor in frustration. "Impossible! How will we feed the crew?" the blue chef hissed. Alex didn't panic. He studied the remaining ingredients calmly, noting which combinations could produce sustenance and which could be toxic. Slowly, methodically, he began preparing meals. He sliced glowing tubers, mixed them with floating proteins, and applied heat with precision. The smells were unfamiliar but pleasant, and soon the rest of the kitchen crew paused to watch. You can't do that," the blue-skinned chef exclaimed. "That's not how it's supposed to be done," Alex merely shrugged. Cooking was about understanding materials, not following rules blindly. He plated the meals, carefully arranging them on trays, then set them to float toward the mess hall. The crew hesitated, eyeing the food suspiciously. Then, one by one, they tasted it. The reactions were immediate. The blue chef blinked, the insectoid hovered midair in surprise, and even the green slug-like alien let out a sound that could only be described as delight. "By the stars, he did it," muttered the captain, stepping forward. "I don't understand it, but it works. Human, you stay." Alex nodded silently. He didn't need praise, success was enough. But he noticed subtle changes in the crew. Where there had been skepticism, there was now cautious respect. Where there had been dismissive laughter, there was curiosity. He could feel their eyes on him as he continued to cook, studying how the ingredients reacted under different temperatures and techniques, inventing new combinations on the fly. Days passed, and life aboard the starship settled into a rhythm. Alex remained quiet, mostly speaking only when necessary, but his reputation grew. When the ship encountered a new planet with unusual food resources, the aliens were unsure how to handle them. Alex observed the materials carefully, experimenting in silence. He prepared meals that not only nourished the crew, but also boosted their energy and resilience in ways the aliens hadn't thought possible. The aliens began to realize something profound. Humans, unlike their species, didn't rely solely on instinct or tradition. Humans adapted. Humans experimented. Humans could see possibilities where others saw only limits, and Alex was proof of that. One evening, after a particularly long day of cooking and problem-solving, the captain approached him. "I have to ask," the captain said, his voice calm but tinged with curiosity. "You don't speak much. Why?" Alex looked up from cleaning a counter and gave a small shrug. Words weren't his strength, he thought. Actions were, but the captain didn't seem displeased. He nodded slowly. "Works for me," he said. And with that simple sentence, Alex felt an unspoken trust form between them. He wasn't just a cook. He was a human aboard a starship full of aliens, and humans, it seemed, were capable of far more than the crew had imagined. Not long after, another crisis tested him. A sudden outbreak of a strange, floating fungus infected the ship's storage units. Some crew members panicked, unsure how to handle it. Alex examined the fungus, noting its properties. While the aliens debated endlessly, he quietly prepared a mixture of ingredients that neutralized the threat. By the time the others realized what he had done, the problem was solved. "Again, you've saved us," the insectoid said, buzzing in admiration. Alex merely nodded. Words weren't necessary. He could see the glimmer of respect forming in the eyes of the alien crew. They were beginning to understand that humans were not weak or simple. Humans observed, adapted, and acted in ways that were unpredictable but effective. Over the next week, the alien crew started coming to him with requests, some for meals, others for advice on handling alien ingredients, and even suggestions for solving minor ship problems. Alex quietly offered solutions, his calm presence grounding the otherwise chaotic kitchen. It was in these moments Alex realized that being quiet had its advantages. While the aliens shouted, argued, and fussed, he could see clearly. He could think clearly. And in a universe full of unpredictable dangers, clarity was a rare and valuable gift. One night, as the ship drifted through the quiet expanse of a distant star cluster, the captain visited him again. "I'll admit it," he said, leaning against the prep counter. "I didn't think humans could be this useful. I thought you'd be another crew member who talks too much and does too little, but you've proved me wrong." Alex looked up at him and gave a small, quiet smile. He didn't need to explain himself. His actions had spoken volumes. "Good," the captain said with a nod. "Because this ship, it needs people like you." And so, Alex continued quietly in his work, cooking for the crew, solving problems, and proving every day that humans, even those who spoke little, could make a difference in ways no one could have imagined. The alien crew, once skeptical, began to see him not just as a cook, but as a human whose ingenuity, patience, and calm determination could be the difference between life and death in the endless void of space. In the silence of the kitchen, Alex finally felt at home. Words were unnecessary. The universe was speaking in ways he could understand, through flavors, solutions, and quiet strength. And in that language, humans had always been fluent. The ship drifted closer to an uncharted planet, a strange world with swirling green and purple clouds in its atmosphere. The captain called the crew together in the control room. Their mission was simple in words but dangerous in reality. Land on the planet, collect rare resources critical to the ship's survival, and return safely. The crew, still adjusting to Alex's quiet presence, watched him carefully. They had begun to understand that his silence did not mean weakness, it meant focus. The aliens debated strategy, voices overlapping in chaos. The insectoid zipped from one console to another, offering calculations faster than anyone could follow. The blue-skinned chef suggested a landing site near what looked like a mineral-rich plateau. The green slug-like alien preferred a safer valley near the liquid rivers. Every suggestion had flaws and the argument grew louder. Alex, as always, said nothing. He studied the planet from the observation window, noting the patterns of storms, the shapes of the terrain, and the odd glows of strange vegetation. Slowly, he walked to the map console, quietly pointing out a landing zone that was ignored by the others. The captain raised an eyebrow but nodded, trusting Alex's instinct. The landing was turbulent. The ship shook violently as it descended through the thick atmosphere, and alarms blared. The alien crew clutched consoles, but Alex remained calm, adjusting controls where necessary and moving between stations with precision. Once the ship touched down, the crew spilled out onto the planet's surface, unsure how to navigate the dangerous environment. The planet was alive in ways they hadn't expected. Strange plants shifted when touched, and the ground itself seemed to ripple beneath their boots. Alex moved carefully, observing without haste. He noticed patterns in the movements of the vegetation and the behavior of the small, glowing creatures that crawled across the ground. The aliens, panicked by every movement, hesitated. "Careful," the blue-skinned chef shouted as a vine shot upward, nearly wrapping around his leg. Alex stepped forward calmly, using a small blade to cut the vine at just the right angle. The vine recoiled harmlessly. The crew stared, amazed. His actions were precise, measured, and effective. He didn't shout, he didn't panic, he simply acted. As they collected resources, another challenge emerged. The glowing flora emitted a soft, hypnotic hum that affected the aliens' concentration. Some became dizzy, others clumsy. Alex, immune to the effect due to his focused attention, guided the crew, pointing out safe paths and instructing them through gestures and simple commands. He even devised a method to transport the delicate resources without damage, using makeshift containers from local materials. When lunchtime approached, the crew expected Alex to prepare something simple, but he had already studied the local ingredients and began cooking. The aroma of alien herbs and proteins filled the air, calming the crew and boosting their energy. One bite, and the crew felt stronger, more alert, and surprisingly resilient to the hypnotic hum of the planet. The alien crew had never tasted anything like it. You made this from that," the insectoid whispered, hovering near Alex's station, its wings trembling with excitement. Alex simply nodded and returned to cooking. Words were unnecessary, results were enough. The crew's respect deepened. Humans, they realized, didn't just survive. They adapted, they improved, they conquered challenges with creativity and patience. Suddenly, a storm approached, darker and faster than any they had anticipated. The ground shook violently, and jagged lightning split the sky. The aliens panicked again, unsure how to return to the ship safely. Alex, as usual, remained calm. He studied the storm's patterns, noting wind currents and the safest routes. He guided the crew using hand signals, gestures, and clear demonstrations. They followed his lead, and despite the chaos, the group made it back to the ship without injury. Once inside, Alex turned his attention to the ship itself. The storm had caused minor damage to external systems, and the aliens were overwhelmed by the complexity of repairs. Alex, however, quietly assessed the problems. Using tools from the cargo bay, he fixed broken panels and stabilized critical circuits. His work was swift and effective, showing yet again that human ingenuity extended far beyond cooking. After the repairs, the captain approached him. "I can't begin to understand how you do it," the captain said, voice a mix of awe and curiosity. "You cook, you survive, you fix the ship, and you don't even speak much." Alex shrugged, giving a small smile. Actions, he thought, were always clearer than words, but the planet was not done testing them. That night, the crew was awakened by strange vibrations from the ground. Large, glowing creatures, massive and serpentine, slithered toward the ship, drawn by the scent of the resources they had collected. The aliens froze in fear, unsure how to confront beings far larger and stronger than themselves. Alex observed the creatures carefully. They were curious, not immediately hostile, but one misstep could provoke an attack. He quickly devised a plan. Using materials from the planet and the ship's supplies, he created a series of makeshift traps and diversions. He placed reflective panels to confuse the glowing serpents and laid out containers that released harmless but distracting scents. When the creatures approached, they were diverted, slipping past the crew without attacking. The aliens watched in awe, realizing that Alex's calm observation and clever improvisation had saved them again. "You see," Alex said quietly, pointing to the creatures now harmlessly slithering away. "Sometimes patience and understanding are stronger than strength." The captain nodded slowly, impressed. "You don't need words to lead, human. You just need skill, thought, and courage." By the time the storm cleared and the planet's surface calmed, the crew had not only collected the necessary resources but had survived challenges they would have thought impossible. The aliens' perception of humans shifted further. Where they had once seen quietness as weakness, they now saw it as a strength, a mark of discipline, observation, and unexpected creativity. On the journey back to open space, Alex prepared another meal using some of the rare ingredients they had collected. As the aliens ate, they felt renewed, energized, and more confident than ever. The meal became a symbol of the human touch, the ability to adapt, improve, and provide solutions where others could only panic. The insectoid hovered near Alex, wings buzzing softly. "You are unlike any human I have heard of. You are quiet but powerful." Alex gave a small, quiet smile, focusing on chopping vegetables. Words were still unnecessary. The crew understood through results and actions what humans could do. The captain leaned against the observation window, watching Alex work. "I still don't understand humans fully," he said, "but I know one thing: he's worth more than any manual or guide. We'll need him on every mission like this." Alex nodded silently, satisfied. He didn't seek praise, but as he looked around at the crew, who now moved with confidence he had quietly instilled, he realized something. Humans, even silent ones like him, had the power to shape events, to inspire trust, and to lead in ways no alien could predict. That night the ship sailed through the starry expanse, the crew resting, the engines humming steadily. Alex sat quietly in the kitchen bay, tasting a new dish he had prepared. The flavors were unfamiliar even to him, but they worked. They were nourishing, energizing, and comforting, a reminder that even in the vast, cold universe, small acts of care could make all the difference. And quietly, without words, Alex proved again that humans were remarkable. They didn't always need to speak. They just needed to act, to think, to create solutions, and the universe itself would take notice. The ship had barely cleared the atmosphere of the uncharted planet when alarms blared throughout the vessel. Alex, in the kitchen bay at the time, felt the vibration under his feet. Without hesitation, he ran toward the control room, moving faster than any of the aliens could. The entire crew was there, panic evident in every movement. Red lights flashed, screens displayed multiple threats, and the hum of the engines became jagged with strain. A rival alien faction known for ruthless raids had intercepted them. Their ships were faster, better armed, and more numerous. The crew froze, unsure of how to respond. The captain barked orders, but even he seemed uncertain. Alex, calm as ever, observed the situation silently. Words weren't necessary. He analyzed the positions of the enemy ships, the strengths and weaknesses of their own vessel, and the limited resources they had at hand. "We can't win this with weapons alone," the captain admitted, frustration in his voice. "We'll be boarded. We'll lose everything." Alex didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the storage bay and began gathering supplies. The aliens watched, confused. What could a cook do in a battle? But Alex's eyes were focused, his mind calculating multiple solutions simultaneously. He grabbed containers of alien ingredients, emergency supplies, and cooking tools, then returned to the control room. "Human, what are you doing?" the insectoid asked, wings buzzing nervously. Alex simply gestured to the supplies. Then, with swift efficiency, he began preparing improvised devices. Using heating elements, volatile alien spices, and containers, he created small, controlled explosions that could be launched to distract the enemy ships. He rigged containers to release smoke and blinding lights, and even fashioned nets from floating protein threads to entangle boarding drones. The aliens were astonished. A cook. And yet here he was, devising a full defensive strategy from kitchen materials. When the enemy ships closed in, Alex's inventions were put to the test. He threw the first devices overboard. Explosions and smoke erupted in space, confusing the rival faction and giving the crew the opportunity to maneuver. The nets caught drones mid-flight, disabling them before they could breach the hull. The alien crew followed his improvisation, adapting as he had silently instructed through gestures and demonstrations. Despite their superior firepower, the enemy ships faltered under the unexpected tactics. Alex moved from station to station, fixing minor damage, rerouting power, and calming panicked crew members with a quiet, commanding presence. His ingenuity turned a seemingly hopeless situation into a tactical advantage. During the chaos, a boarding pod managed to latch onto their ship. Alien soldiers began climbing aboard, weapons ready. The crew panicked, but Alex acted without hesitation. He had noticed the boarding pod's weak points. Using a combination of controlled flame from a portable heater and slippery alien oils, he created a trap that caused the attackers to slip and become entangled. The aliens fighting alongside him were amazed at his calm precision. "You're incredible," the blue-skinned chef shouted as he defended a doorway. "How can one human do all this?" Alex didn't answer. He simply moved to the next threat, calculating, improvising, and acting. Words were unnecessary. The results were clear. Humans could think in ways no alien could, and their creativity in crisis was unmatched. By the time the enemy finally retreated, the ship had sustained minor damage but was intact. The alien crew, once skeptical, now looked at Alex with awe. His calmness, intelligence, and quick thinking had saved them all. Even the captain, who had once doubted the human, was impressed beyond words. In the aftermath, Alex turned his attention to the kitchen. He began preparing meals from the limited supplies, ensuring the crew recovered quickly from the stress and exhaustion. The alien crew marveled not only at the taste and nourishment of the meals, but at how they seemed to restore energy faster than any standard rations. Once again, Alex had used his unique human perspective, combining knowledge, observation, and creativity, to solve problems in ways the aliens could never have predicted. That night, as the ship traveled through quiet space, the captain visited him. "I have to admit," he said, leaning against a counter, "I underestimated humans. I thought your silence meant weakness, that you couldn't lead or adapt in dangerous situations. But you've proven me wrong. You're remarkable." Alex shrugged, a small, quiet smile on his face. Actions, not words, had always been his strength. And in this universe, filled with unpredictable dangers and strange life forms, that strength was more valuable than anything he could have said. Over the next few days, the crew reflected on the battle. Discussions that once focused on hierarchy and tradition shifted to strategy and innovation. The aliens began to understand that humans, though quiet and unassuming, could see solutions others overlooked. They adapted, they experimented, and they solved problems in ways that combined intuition and creativity. Alex's example became the standard. In the mess hall, the crew gathered for a celebratory meal prepared by Alex. The flavors were complex but comforting, a blend of alien ingredients transformed by human skill. Laughter and conversation filled the room. Even the captain sat quietly, savoring the meal and nodding at Alex in respect. Words had never expressed it fully, but the sentiment was clear. This human had earned his place on the ship and in their hearts. "You know," the insectoid said, floating near Alex, "we used to think humans were simple, but you've changed everything." Alex smiled softly, continuing to serve food. He didn't need to explain. The crew had learned something invaluable. Humans may speak little, but their minds are sharp, their creativity unmatched, and their courage undeniable. As the ship sailed on, the universe stretched out in every direction. Stars glittered, planets spun silently, and unknown dangers waited in the shadows. Yet aboard this ship, the crew was confident. They had a human among them, a quiet observer, a clever problem solver, and a cook who could turn alien ingredients into meals that nourished body and spirit. The captain looked at Alex once more. "I don't understand all humans," he admitted, "but I know one thing for certain. You've made this ship stronger, safer, and better. Works for me." Alex nodded quietly. Words were never necessary. He had proven, through every action, every meal, every clever solution in the face of danger, that humans were extraordinary. Silent or not, they could adapt, create, and inspire trust in ways no one could predict. In the quiet of the kitchen bay, Alex cleaned his station, tasting a new dish he had prepared. The crew moved about the ship, confident and energized, ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at them next. And Alex, silent but brilliant, continued to do what humans did best: think, act, adapt, and survive. Even in the endless black of space, surrounded by strange aliens and unknown dangers, one thing was certain: a human could make a difference. Not with words, but with courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. And Alex had done just that. The stars outside the windows stretched endlessly, but the ship, guided by human skill, moved forward with confidence. Humans were not just part of the universe, they were a force within it. And as long as Alex was aboard, the crew knew they could face anything. The quiet human continued his work, cooking, observing, and protecting in his own way. And the aliens, once skeptical, had learned a profound truth: underestimate a human at your own peril. And so the ship sailed on, the hum of engines steady, the stars endless, and a quiet human proved every day that action spoke louder than words, and that humanity, no matter how silent, could shine brighter than any alien technology or strategy.